Okay, this is a demonstration of an import of a Parasolid file and align the CSs needed for machining of that Parasolid file. The file we're going to work on is called the slot block. It's included on the DVD and has a Parasolid extension on it. I'll show you where it's located. It's called the slot block, and remember it has a Parasolid extension on it. X_T is the standard for that. There's also an XMT can sometimes be used, but it's called slot block .xmt_t. And we're just going to open it, and we're going to set it for a 3-axis or a 4-axis or a 5-axis vertical mill depending on your configuration. And we're going to solidify, remove unneeded topology, and simplify. Anytime you bring a solid model in, you should check all 3 of these boxes. That's how we tell the software to solidify it and do some other things we'll talk about in a further session. Just for now, remember to check all 3 of those boxes. And it's going to bring in that file, and when you perform a file open, it automatically wraps the stock boundaries around whatever it finds in that file, whether it's wireframe geometry or solid model. In this case, just a solid, but it gives the limits of the stock. You can see it goes 8.8 to 9.8 to minus 9.8 in X and 4 in Y. It's about 5 inches high in Z. I'm going to go ahead and close this window out and bring up my view control knob so we can see what the top looks like and the front view, end view, isometric view of the part. Now, to create the alignment CSs, or the coordinate systems for this, we need to use these 2 buttons on the second stack of icons immediately below the workgroup button. We talked about the workgroup button in many of our sessions earlier when we were building geometry. We're not going to be building any geometry in this session, just aligning and machining an existing solid model. So first thing we need to do is bring up the coordinate system button, and that shows us all the existing CSs, or coordinate systems. You can see we're set right now to the XY plane. CS number 1, that's the default, and you can't change that. You can't modify it. You can't do anything with it except use it as reference. Typically, most machining is done in the XY plane, other than a part like this. But in fact, just keep in mind you can't modify or change in any way this first CS or CS1, the XY plane. So to make a new plane, obviously we need to click on New CS. So immediately below the CS1, there's a new CS. Click, and as soon as we click on that, we get user CS number 2. If you click on that twice slowly, you can rename these things. I'm just going to call this right, because in fact it's going to be the right side. Oops, using the wrong button on my keyboard here. Hit the control key instead of the shift key. So I'm going to call this right, and we're going to call it the right plane. Let's go back to isometric view again. It's always easier to build these things when you're working in the isometric view. And further, we need to turn on the face selection tool, so I can select any face of the part. What I'm interested in is this face that represents the right side angled face of this part. And to create a CS, our coordinate system on that plane, I need to bring up the next button down, which brings up the CS creation dialog button, or dialog toolbar, where we can change the origin of a CS. We can use a horizontal or vertical alignment of some kind. We can also align to a plane, or in this case a face. We can also go into the defaults, the XY, the XZ, the YZ, or we can flip the normal depth axis of each one of these planes as we go here. So with that face selection, with that right side face selected, what I'm going to do here, make sure we're in the new CS number 2, I called it right. Hold down the Alt key, and the Alt key, you can always tell when the Alt key is depressed because your cursor turns into a little square. Some of us that been around for a while call this thing the lasso tool because it in fact retrieves data from the model. In this case, we're going to align that face using the Align CS palette. So with the Alt key down and that face selected, it should turn yellow. In my case, you can see that on the screen here. We click on the Align Face button. In fact, what it does is it builds a CS on that face, and you can see every time I click on that face or that button, it orients that face 90 degrees. You always want to make sure to hold down the Alt key and keep aligning that CS until you're looking at, when you look at the home view of that, you're looking at the vertical. Does it no longer say X because now it's the vertical axis of that CS, and the Y value because that in fact is the Y attribute of that face lies along the Y-axis in that plane there. And you'll notice also it put the origin of that CS through the origin of the XY plane we selected initially. So that's how we create the alignment for that face. Just keep in mind, you want to make sure when you look at the home view, this button right up here on your toolbar, it's correctly aligned. If it's not, click on, hold down the Alt key, and keep flipping this CS normal flag around until you get exactly what you're looking for. Also, be sure that you're looking at the positive side, the plus sign of that plane. If I flip this part around here so I can look at the back of it, you'll see that when we do that, now we're looking at the minus side of that plane. You never want to have the minus sign facing you because that's the tool, that's the normal side that the tool will enter from when you go about machining that. So we've created the right face or the right CS. To make the next one, you always follow this instruction. Go back to the XY plane, reorient the model so that you're looking at the top view, isometric again. Make sure the XY plane's active before you say new CS. That's very, very important. Always make sure the XY plane's active before you say new CS. So with the XY plane active, click on new CS. Now I'm going to call this left, because it's going to be the left side. We make that face active. Notice that the XY plane's still up there on the top of the part. Hold down the Alt key again and click on the Align CS, and make sure again you're looking at the home view of that. Make sure you're looking at the positive vertical and the horizontal, in this case, axis of that plane. So now we've got the top, the right side, and the left side CS. So to put a CS or work plane coordinate system on the front of this part, the rules are the same. We go back and make sure the XY plane's active. Click on new CS, and I'm going to click slowly on that and call this front, and make sure that face is selected. Hold down the Alt key, click on the Align CS again. This time it comes up the first time correctly, so we're looking at the positive X and positive Z value of that CS. So to review, XY planes at the top, the right side, left side, front. The right side, home view. The left side, home view. Front, home view. So that's all there is to know about orienting or aligning a CS coordinate system. You need to understand, if you need to machine on a face that's not the XY plane, you have to have a coordinate system that describes the machining plane, the machining surface you're going to be using that for subsequent machining. So that's the exercise when importing and aligning in this case 3 coordinate systems to the correct faces of the part. That's the end of this video. In subsequent videos we're going to build a tool and then machine this part here called the slot block. Thank you.